if you're recruiting in the same pond that looks like you, feels like you, act like you, then you're going to get people in your organization that look like you, think like you, act like you. How innovative is that? You need a diversity of thought. And in order to get the diversity of thought when you're recruiting, you need to cast your net in other ponds.
Welcome to Building Connections Doral Talks. I'm your host, Betty Gonzalez. Today, we are thrilled to have Charmin Jacobs with us, a distinguished military veteran turned empowerment coach, former deputy director officer, and author of international bestsellers. Charmin's extensive experience in diversity and inclusion, her transition to coaching, and her commitment to supporting women veterans through entrepreneurship are just a few highlights of her impressive career. Charmin, we are eager to hear your insights and stories on making impactful changes both personally and professionally. Charmin, good morning and thank you for coming on this morning.
Good morning, Betty. Thank you for allowing me to have a voice here on your platform. I really appreciate it.
No, of course. You're my perfect guest because I'm a veteran myself. But before we start diving in all of your wealth of knowledge and your experience, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from? And I want to also know more than just where you're from. What branch of service did you retire from? How long did you serve? And why did you decide the branch that you joined to?
All right. So first question is, I was born in Brunswick, Georgia. And when I was 8, moved to Delaware, where I graduated and attended college just before a year of college on a basketball scholarship, just before I made a decision to join the military. And the branch of service that I chose was the Navy. So my cousin was in the Army at the time. It was during the Gulf War, and I really admired and looked up to my cousin. So, anything that he said at the time was probably golden. So he said, hey, go into either Air Force or the Navy. And so the Navy is where I landed. The next question was, so I did 22 years, 5 months, 7 days. And I would have done longer, but due to be very transparent, you don't go to the headquarters to not get promoted. In the military, you are doing the work, which is meaningful work for the mission of whatever wherever you served at. And mine was at the time medical and deputy diversity officer. So I wasn't being put in positions or given projects where I was going to be competitive against my peers. So I decided at the 22-year mark, it's time to go and plant myself somewhere else and fertilize myself and grow. And so,
Charmin, you're doing more than most. For example, we did this. I also did 22 years, by the way, in the Army. Mm-hmm. And, we're less than 1% of the population that decide to do, to join a branch of the military. But even less are the people that decide to retire from it. So,
right.
So no, right. You did a lot. Thank you. Oh my God, that's busy. And then serving in the medical field, that's a lot. But you mentioned diversity. So what does that actually mean? So for people listening, what does inclusion and diversity mean? What does that entail?
So I'll tell you what it entails to me. I'll Charminize it. I have Charminism. So diversity is, I use an analogy of basketball, right? So you can be on the basketball team, right? And you can have plenty of different diverse people on the basketball team. But what about being one of the 5 to start, right? So I'm one of the 5 to start. So that is inclusion, right? Or equity. But what about giving me the ball so that I can take my shot from anywhere on the floor? So that is how I kind of define diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Is that, I'm part of a team, but not only am I part of a team, I have a seat at the table, and then I have a voice at the table too, right? And, it's been a challenging time, to be very transparent. And let me just say for me, because I'm not a box checker, I'm a behavior checker. And so I only want to work with organizations in the DEI space when they're ready to make a change in behaviors. And those behaviors weren't created overnight, so you can't fix them with one training session, one coaching session. It's an ongoing effort because you have to change people's mindsets, right? You have to educate them about other diverse groups and looking at it from their lens. It's like
it's really deep. I have follow-on questions. I want to unpack what you just said because it's deep, and I want people to get it. So you said an acronym DEA. What was the acronym again?
DEI and
DEI. So for those of us that don't know, what does that mean?
It's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And some people, the B behind it, which is belonging as well. So
and then also I wanted to ask you. You say you're not a block checker,
right? Some people behavior.
Yeah. So could you elaborate on that a little bit more? What did you mean by block checker like that?
So some people will. So you'll look is. So some corporations, major corporations, right? They will say that they are inclusive. However, their communication is not inclusive. For instance, I'm married to a woman. So when me and my wife book a hotel and it's Charmin and Letitia, we always get Mr. and Mrs. Well, we're not Mr. and Mrs. We're Mrs. and Mrs. So the language is not, so they may say they're inclusive, but your language that you communicate with your customers is not inclusive. It needs to be gender. You can have gender neutrality, or you can have a way that your systems has a drop down button to identify Mrs. and Mrs. or
This
Mr.
is really,
and
right, this is really clear. I mean, this is so simple, but it makes sense because it's not being inclusive or addressing the right audience, because obviously it's not husband and wife, it's wife and wife, or husband and husband.
And you can you can celebrate pride, but again, how are you, that's outward, right? You're like, oh, I celebrate pride, I'm inclusive. You may have a employee resource group, but again, those aren't that, you don't stop there. What about the language that you are talking to your clients?
Right.
How, in order to not just be a one and done or a window dressing when it comes to that.
So you remind me. No, go ahead, Charmin. I'm sorry.
I mean, and that's just that's not just for the LGBTQIA community. That is for every community, right? When I was working for the federal government, because I haven't always been a full-time entrepreneur, I oversaw what we call the special emphasis programs, which in the civilian sector, it is the employee resource groups. And so we have the veterans, we have Hispanic, we have Asian Pacific Islanders, we have disability and American Indian, right? So how are we being more inclusive to those populations that are underrepresented in various organizations? So I just wanted to add that.
No, that's great. Okay, so now that when you explain your story and in inclusion and diversity, so I have a story to tell myself. So when I was actually in Iraq, my last deployment, I was in the field of artillery, and I was the only female in the company. And they gave me this position, Women's Initiative in Iraq. However, they themselves wouldn't speak to me for 6 months. I think I mentioned this before, because they never worked with a female. And it was a little ironic that I would have to go in the community to talk about, women's initiative and equal opportunities for, that's the name, opportunity. And I think people get it confused what that means. And this is my take. I have years talking about. This is my take on equal opportunity as a female and as a minority. So I had this person that I really, really loved and looked up to him. He was a great leader, but I don't think he kind of understood what it really meant. And so I'm gonna tell you how I told him. So let me see if I can remember verbatim. So during that time, that was 2009, and they were in the United States at the time. They were trying to fight for equal pay for equal job for females and males. And I remember he walking by, and then he's saying, "That's never gonna happen." And I was like, "I think it would. I don't see why not. In the Army, we have equal pay for equal job. If I am a sergeant first class and in the Army and I'm a female or I'm a male, I still get paid the same. I don't see why not it wouldn't be the same in the civilian sector." That was one time. Another time, you know how, I don't know in the Navy, but in the Army, we used to have the physical fitness test. And it was different standards for females and males. And it's reasonable why. And I will explain for people that have not been in the military why. So for females, push-ups was a different standard for different ages, you know, and the gender, the females and males, sit-ups was the same, but then the running was different as well. And I remember talking about, somebody was talking, and then at that time I wasn't enlisted. I was also enlisted, and then I became a warrant officer. At that time I was a sergeant first class. And I remember they saying, "Sergeant Ortega." That was my maiden name before I changed it to my husband's name. "So don't you want to have the same PT standards as the male? Because you want to be the same?" And I was like, "No, I do not. I do not want to be like a man. That's not the same as being offered equal opportunity." And then I went on and I explained to him. In the back of his desk, he had a picture of his daughter and a picture of his son. And obviously they were Americans, and his daughter was playing soccer. And I can tell that was his weak spot. And I was like, "You see how your daughter plays soccer? In Iraq, that's a major sport. Female cannot play. Whether your daughter becomes a major league soccer player or not, she has an opportunity to become one. Where here, they do not. That doesn't mean that they need to be males. They could just be females in the female space, having equal opportunity to excel. That's what equal opportunity means, in my opinion." And then I was like, for the female physical fitness and the male physical fitness, they do a test. And based on the test of the gender and the female capabilities and the male capabilities, then that's why the tests come. And males by trade, when they're born, have more lungs, capacity, and the bones density is stronger. So no, I don't feel that it should be the same. And I'm proud to be a female, but it is nothing wrong to have equal access to equal opportunity to excel. So that's not the same. But I felt so I also felt like I had to defend all the time, even though they themselves gave me that position. So I had the job to do it there, and then I had the job to do it outside. It was pretty interesting. So thank you for sharing that. So, but what were you gonna say, Charmin?
I was going to say that, a lot of people have a mindset of, that when it's, when you talk about equal opportunity or even more controversy, affirmative action, right? Is that people are less qualified. It doesn't mean that. It just means that and when people are doing recruiting, if you're recruiting in the same pond that looks like you, feels like you, act like you, then you're going to get people in your organization that look like you, think like you, act like you. How innovative is that? You need a diversity of thought. And in order to get the diversity of a thought when you're recruiting, you need to cast your net in other ponds. Just because someone goes to an HBCU doesn't mean that education is less than a PWI, right? And I think I have that terminology right? So it just means that, there are overqualified students that are excelling at in different colleges and organizations. We need to think of making it more of not a melting pot, because I think of a melting pot, you putting crayons in a melting pot and then they take on a form of something else, a color of something else. I like to think of it as a mosaic masterpiece where each piece still keeps its shape and its color. And
But
when they
together forms a
put it
building.
together,
Mhm.
it has a mosaic masterpiece. So
That is beautiful. No, no, no. And I just love, so that it ties with my question. So what drove you to get the initiative of creating success after discharge, focuses on guiding women veterans in their entrepreneurial ventures? Could you share a success story that stands out, or just tell us like why this specific?
yeah. So I believe I've always had an entrepreneurship spirit from when I was a little girl. Either I was working with my mom, doing chores, getting paid, to do the dishes that my brothers also created, or I could go out and hang out with my brothers and cut grass and make a lot more money. So I've always had, so I went out and cut grass and did the chore and went out of the house, hung out with my brothers because I'm the youngest of 5. So I've always had the entrepreneurship spirit, but I did not always have the entrepreneurial mindset in order to go full in. So it was there. I have this saying that sometimes you have to be at your lowest in order to reach your greatness. And so my lowest came at a point where someone questioned, and I hope you don't mind me using this terminology, my badass. So it was a comment, email that was sent earlier in the day, and this is when I was a federal employee, that stated, do I have the expertise in order to teach resume writing, self-confidence in the workplace, interviewing skills, and of course, unconscious bias in the hiring practices. That wasn't.
They asked you that question in an email, like if you were competent?
They didn't ask me the question. It was a director communicating with another director, communicating with my director. So a peer asked me to conduct some training. So I asked what the training needs were, and I came up with those 4 topics. It was during COVID. I was working at an organization that was providing grants to feed America. You can kind of figure out which organization that is. It was an email that was asking that my director that question after I had already set up the webinar registrations to conduct these trainings. I was actually giving them an update on, hey, there's not people registering for these classes. I'm not at the table to articulate the importance of why we needed to do these. So I was just doing my part in letting leadership. And so in the communication with the 2 directors, one director asked, is she qualified? And my thing is like, and he went on a rant, like I'm an EEO professional. I wouldn't expect, HR person from HR to come and teach about EEO and vice versa. And then he made a comment of, oh, people just take a few classes and they just don't want to jump out there. However, he did not know my pedigree. Right? He didn't know me. Mm-hmm. Right? So, and that's another thing too. Get to know your people, right? Or the people that you work with or you collaborate with. He didn't know me. His people knew me because they're the ones that asked. And so the way he questioned it was so triggering. I had to ask myself, why am I here to be questioned about my badassery? I have a master's in educational leadership. I have a master's in human resource management, and I have a certification as a DEI practitioner. So yes, my director said Charmin is qualified, but he included me in the email. Me coming from a leadership standpoint, nah, you didn't need to include me on the email. You need to stand on the table for the people that work for you. You needed to have that conversation and not include me. Like, why do I have to justify anything else? I've already done my part. So it was so triggering because I'd already been seeing how he moved in spaces with other females that it made me feel like he's sexist. And he didn't have to go on a rant, right? And then I just said, I'm not doing the training. And my director was like, well, yes, you are. I said, no, I'm not. I said, I'm not in the military anymore. So I'm not taking, this is not an order. Sorry, I have a choice. And my choice is,
yes,
my choice is that I choose
not to do it.
You to mark me unacceptable in whatever rating you want to, because at the time they changed the rating from unacceptable to acceptable, because so you don't want anyone to be outstanding. You just want people to come and do acceptable work. So go ahead and mark me unacceptable. And it was triggered my anxiety and a little bit of depression and a little bit of things that I've dealt with that snowball over my life of being underappreciated, undervalued, just like what you had mentioned with, oh, well, they didn't even know who I was. I was just a, but until it was a woman initiative, then all of a sudden, oh, I'm the go-to person because I'm the only woman here, right? No, that's overlooked, undermined, undervalued, right? They should have been asking your opinion, your diversity of thought from your perspective on how you walk in this space that we call Earth in this human body. So I had to sit with myself and I said, Charmin, why are you here? Why are you here? Why are you here? You really don't want to be here. So I had to ask myself a couple of questions. That question, why are you here? If you stay, what is your goal? And if you leave, how are you going to sustain your lifestyle until you get your business up and running? And so once I had those questions worked out, I came back and I resigned, build, my network. However, I wasn't playing full in. So in 2021, I rode to the full-time entrepreneurship island. And when I was there, I burnt the boat and the oars, so I couldn't go back. And so that is the space that I've been in. I don't have any regrets. I'm not going to say that it's easy because nothing successful is easy. But what I can say is I own my own time. I work with who I want to, when I want to, how I want to, from wherever I want to. As you see, I have this background. It's kind of doing its own thing because I'm here visiting, my son lives with his father, and he's at the end of his academic basketball career as a high school student. And I vowed to be here for the remainder of his conference championship tournaments and share space with him and be his cheerleader. Something that we miss when we serve because we have an obligation to our duty. So I vowed to always have memorable moments. Took him to Shenandoah Valley early Sunday morning. He took some pictures. I was there. It was cold, yes, but because I live in Florida, right? I live in like you, but I got up early. It was such a great feeling. And my daughter as well. She lives in this area and I'm able to share space. So no more of anyone else controlling my time, telling me what I can and cannot do. Right? I do what I want, when I want. And oh, by the way, the effort that I put into my business is where I get a raise. I control my raises. I don't have to have someone be so subjective to whether I get a raise or not. So for instance, have you ever heard, well, I can't give you more than I give everybody else? Yes, you can. I perform more than everybody else.
That's right.
You need to base it on performance, not base it on, oh, we just going at the end of the year, we got $10,000. We're going to divide it equally. First of all, I don't want money. I want time. I can get money, but I can't get time. Time keep on ticking.
I mean, so we already gave our time. We gave our time already. Oh my gosh, I mean, I identify with you so much, like everything that you're saying. I'm going to say this, and it's nothing to, not for the group. So after I retired in 2019. So it's pretty recent. Not recent, right. It's gonna be 5 years, but during COVID, I transitioned here and I was trying to look for a community and I found the community here on base and it was for the military spouses, almost like an FRG. I don't know what they call it in the Navy, but FRG is like a
family readiness group.
Mm-hmm. You also have it like that in the Navy? You call it like that? No, but it's similar. So I know different branches call it differently. So here we call it something else. And I was so happy that I found it, but in the midst of everything, they decided that I could become the leader of it, right? They voted me in and I was grateful for the group and I wanted to contribute. But I'm telling you something, Charmin, happened to me. Because when I became the leader, two things happened. When I went to the meeting, so military people in uniform were in charge. And there's a lot of politics, no politics, but, yes, what you can or cannot do. And I am very creative, and I'm motivated and have all kinds of ideas. I just felt constrained so badly. And I promise you, I gained weight. It seems ridiculous. It seems ridiculous because it shouldn't be that much. But I retired for a reason. So getting back into that environment, it was not healthy for me. It was not healthy for me. Plus, I didn't feel 100% welcome. Maybe because I wasn't a spouse and I was just a retiree. So
You're not just a retiree.
Say what?
You're not just a retiree.
Well, I know, but I didn't feel appreciated. My ideas were not welcome. I mean, people were very nice, but there was something that it wasn't 100% feel right. And I feel bad because I really like the group, but I haven't felt the same passion to go back. And it kicked me out of it completely. And I think it stemmed from, I don't want to feel constrained anymore. I don't want to have to, for every little thing, ask for this someone else to say, let's do it. So, so I 100% understand what you're talking about. And it seems so minute. I felt I couldn't sleep because I knew that I had to deal with asking permission, asking for so much stuff, so much red tape. And I was like, I don't have time for stuff like this. It doesn't let me
Wow.
and grow in my creativity flow. And I wanted to do videos to promote the group because I think it has value. Like, I really believe the military in South Florida are very, scattered, and we don't know each other. And I believe people coming here, especially some of the spouses coming here, don't have a community because we don't have a big base where people mingle at the PX, commissary or anything like that. MWR that is big, the gym that is open until late. You don't have those things. So people don't know each other, and especially the younger, it doesn't matter, younger or older spouses that don't know anything or end up coming here, they're very lonely. It could be very lonely. And for the retirees that lose their community, even worse.
Yeah, you're right. My cousin moved to Middleburg, Florida from Japan, and I had to let her know, look, you and she's traveled with her husband to Lemoore, California, and things of that nature. Still, but she found her community there. And when she came to Florida, it was again in the midst of COVID, and she wasn't able to get out and have that connectivity. And so I believe, that she was so very, very, it had an effect on her.
Yes.
But now that COVID is over, now he's retired, she's found, she started working at the school that my niece goes to, my younger niece, and she's able to connect and have a community. She used to take pictures. She's a photographer. So her thing was she would take pictures of like when the air wing would come in, like welcome home pictures, bourgeois pictures of the wives that they could send to their husbands while they're on deployment. And so she thrived in that space because she had a blue ocean when she was in Japan, right? A really blue ocean. And so coming back, she had a little constraints, but she's, busy now, 2 college students and working and husband. So, and now that we are both I'm retired, we live about 45 minutes away from each other. And so we get to share space. And
where in Florida do you live, Charmin? Where in Florida?
I live in a little small town in the northwest part of Jacksonville area called Hilliard. It is about 45 minutes away from Amia Island and Fernandina Beach. There's a whole story behind that. Mom went on the other side of greatness. She was born in Fernandina Beach. I remember going there and some great memories. And so when I had a commemorative service, I felt her presence. Went back on Father's Day because my brother and my dad lived there, and to celebrate Father's Day with them. And then God in the universe put it in my spirit that the house that I looked at, the development that I looked at, which was unintentional, we drove by it and I said, let's go in, because I believe in manifestation and touching. Everything has energy. So I went in and I was like, ooh, okay.
He called you.
I was like, oh, okay. And so, when you think it's not possible, it's possible. When you think the impossible, God in the universe has a way of showing you otherwise. So now we live on an acre and a half of land. It's quiet, so I can hear God whisper in my ear. I'm able to go walk on the beach when I'm there. I have a classmate that I grew up with in grade school that lives on the island. We can have brunch, we can have dinner. I mean, it's a good feeling. It's a really good feeling.
Nice. Now, congratulations. I feel that you're not retired until you're retired where you really want to live. If you have to settle for a different place, that's not really retirement. Not to the fullest. But tell me a little bit about success after discharge. How does that look like, and how does your program, how do they help the military transition female veterans?
Right. So Success After Discharge is a program that I developed to.
You froze. I hope it gets better. Well, we have that's what happens when you're live. I lost Charmin. Hopefully she can come back on, but I would like to take an opportunity to ask anybody listening or watching this podcast to please submit your, I lost her completely, to submit your request to come on the podcast, especially if you have any business or you're a veteran or you live right here in Doral. You're welcome to come on as a guest speaker and present your offers, talk about your expertise, talk about your businesses right here. Even if you are a local that just purchased here, or if you have any stories or that you would like to share of your transition moving to Doral or just moving to South Florida, period, and you would like people to help them transition to coming here to South Florida, I will welcome you to join us. Just coming back up. You're muted, Charmin.
Okay.
Yes, you're back. So I didn't hear. No, not a problem. I was talking and I was doing an announcement during your absence. So you were talking about our success after discharge, what was going to be about, and then you got caught up right there.
Yes. So it is, a 12-week roadmap where 1 week we talk about ideation, market research, then we go into the different phases like, your business planning, your structure, your website design, your content, and marketing, and things of that nature. And it is, there's several different ways. You can do it in a group setting or you can do one-on-one. But what I find that a lot of ladies that I've talked to over the course of the years is like, I don't know what I want to do I don't know what I want to do or be when I grow up. And I don't know what business I want to start. And so there are some strengths and some skills that we have that make us the best entrepreneur. Okay. Teamwork, resilience, perseverance, right? As a woman, intuition, right? Nurturing, right? We have those qualities. And so you can take those qualities, and I like to say you can turn your passion into a profit. You can turn like your intellectual knowledge, because we all have it, into a product.
And so you're speaking. Okay, so you said that we have like intangibles, right? Intangible talents, teamwork, perseverance, intuition, and intellectual knowledge, and you help them package them into a product. So how do you help them through going through this to learn the intellectual knowledge that they have? How do you help get that out to package them into a product? Could you give us just a little bit of snippet?
So asking some curious questions to get them to, because we all have the answers inside of us. We just need someone to ask us some questions in order to trigger. So for instance, let's just say you're really good at math. There's a certain population of the world that needs your genius, especially if you like nurturing, you have that intuition, you like teamwork, you like working with people. So guess what? There are people out there that need their kids tutored in math. They may want to be tutored in math. This young lady also went back and got her GED, and she helped everybody else get their GED. I believe that now my business coach does not even have a GED, and she is a millionaire. People are like, oh, you need to go back and get it. No, You don't know what people's circumstances are or why they didn't get that piece of paper that says that, oh, now you move on to college or so on and so forth. They have the gift inside of them. Look at our ancestors. They didn't have all of this formal education. So you have the thing inside of you. And it plants on, we talk about what's your why. Because when you know your why and you go, Simon Sinek has this activity that I use. It's called the 7 levels deep. And when you go down 7 levels deep on your why, then you get to the root of why you're doing something. And when you're in the midst of adversity, you're in the midst of having a misstep, not a failure, but a misstep, then you think about your why, and your why is going to drive you.
Right. So could you give us an example of 2 deep or 3 deep whys, like a why of a why of a why? Do you have an example? Or you can ask me if you want.
Yeah. Okay, so why did you want to go into real estate?
Okay, I wanted to go into real estate because this is something that I've always wanted to do. So since when I bought my first house, I thought it happened when I was 25, when I bought my first house. But I think it happened way before that, when I was a teenager. Well, let's keep it like that.
Okay, so you said that, if I could repeat what you said you went into real estate because you were interested ever since you bought your first house.
Yes.
So why did buying your first house have you go into real estate?
Because I believe, so that's another layer, right? That it gives you a sense of power, a sense of community, and it gives you like, I don't know, as if you are in charge of your life. It's so simple. It's so simple, but you feel empowered. And none of my family actually in the United States had a house that they.
So there we go. So I want to stop you there. So I believe that it's deeper, that you are on a mission to be the first in your family to help others be first time buyers. So you're helping others because you were the first in your family.
And not only,
right?
Charmin, I used my VA loan as a military, and not only my family, other veterans that for some crazy reason just don't use that entitlement that belongs to them, they already earned. Do you know that I think it's less than 1/3 of people that are eligible to use their VA loan ever used it?
Wow. So then you want to help others to maximize their VA benefits in order to become homeowners.
Yes. And I'm telling you,
And why do you want to do that?
Because it's important as a minority, just a hard worker person. You're not rich, but it's important to start building your wealth, and you can start building your wealth through real estate. And we have this right.
Right. So you wanted to help others to maximize their VA benefits so that they can create wealth for their families.
Yes.
Right.
It's a building. It's a step in building wealth. Yeah. Building.
So it's a step in building wealth. So you see how it's deep? See how it's deep? It's really deep. So I have an example here that I want to read. So why do you write this book? To change 1 million lives by helping them see a better path and a better habit to success. Why do you want to change 1 million lives? Because it feels amazing to serve and help others. Well, why does that feel amazing to serve and help others? It allows for an even more successful business based on solid principles and values. Well, why is it important for you to have a business that's based on principles and values? I want to leave a legacy for my family that my family will be proud of. Well, why is it important for you to leave a legacy for your family? I never want to go bankrupt. Hated being broke as a kid. Well, why do you never want to go backwards? I want my kids to have choices as they grow up. And then the last question is, Why is it important for your kids to have choices that you never had? Because I want to be in control. I want to live a life on the terms, to be free to do as I choose. So when you're in,
those are the 7 deep for you, for your book that you wrote. Could you tell us the name of that book?
Well, the name of the book, so I wrote I co-authored 4 books. The 2 latest books, the 2 best-selling authors, international best-selling author books per Amazon, was She Got the Power. So that is a collaborative book with my sisters from the RR Fund. So it's a collective group of women where it's an investment. And so one of the things that we decided to do as a group is to talk about our journey, our wealth journey. How did you look at wealth? What did wealth look like for you at this age? When you found out what your number was, which is your net worth, what did it do for you? How did you respond? So there was like 10 questions that we had to answer and do some deep thought and some introspection on, and write it in the book and share. The other one before that one was called Grown Woman Shift, shifting how I think. And both of these visionaries behind these books are both dear friends of mine. But the one, my friend that did the Grown Woman Shift, it was like, man, we're always having to shift how we think. What worked well with back then may not work well now. Just look at how we're communicating, right? How we're working. You always have to be learning, growing. We were put here to grow. And so you always have to shift how you're thinking. The perspective that you have, like, you can take something as a foundation, but you can build upon that and change how you think on certain things. Because your thinking is not always the right thinking on certain situations in life. Right?
Exactly.
What worked well for me doesn't work well for my kids, right? I can give them stories, foundations, but at the end of the day, they came into this human body to live their life according to what God has planned for them. And so I'm just help guide them, but at sometimes our kids don't want to be guided. So you have to let them go out and plot their own path and just be in the back with the life raft. Throw it when they take a gulp of water or two.
No, I know. And then just find their own wind, their own waves. So what advice do you have for women veterans based on your extensive experience working with women veterans transitioning into entrepreneurship? Like, what key piece of advice would you offer to someone starting this journey?
Find someone that you know, like, and trust that is already where you're going. You know what they say, if you're the smartest person in the room, then you need to find another one to be in. And so I am a proponent of always having professional development. I have a business coach. The biggest expense is my business professional development, right? I want to, as I am an encourager, I need to be encouraged. I don't know everything, right? I don't want to go on this journey alone. So I have a business coach. So I would say, one, they used to say proper planning prevents piss poor performance. So plan, right? Use some of those success habits that made you successful in the military. For instance, the structure that you have in the military, yes, as an entrepreneur, you don't have anyone there ensuring that structure, but you can ensure that structure. One, get up in the morning. Like, I couldn't wait to sleep in till I was, but that's just, I work well in the morning. So when you said, oh, we're going to do this at 9:00, I was like, okay, I just got to start my routine just a little bit early. I got to go on my walk. I got to get dressed. I got to start my routine just a little bit early. And I have this thing that when you stop moving, you start dying. We're made to move. Right? And sorry about the background, but we're made to move. And if you don't move your extremities and your mind, then it's going to deteriorate. So you got to get up and start moving. You know what they say? You can become an expert by reading something or learning something for 15 minutes a day for 365 days. Become an expert for 15 minutes for 365 days, right?
And start implementing what you're learning.
Right, exactly. And so some of those habits that made you successful in the military, they translate into being successful as an entrepreneur. Keep those things, keep those morning routine, keep those things, and find a mentor, a coach, right?
So what I hear you saying, so I hear you saying is like we already have it in us to those routines, and then find somebody that's done what you want to do and emulate that, because buying time. Once you get somebody that's been there, you're buying time. You might have to pay, but you don't have to go through textbooks to learn, because you're going to condense the learning cycle or the learning curve.
And not only that, they have already cleared the path. You pay for speed. Right. When you pay for it, you can go out there. There's a plethora of information on YouTube University, right? Books. But, I know how I am, right? I've bought so many books. I just actually bought another book, but I also bought the audio. And that book is called, because I think it's a wonderful book, I'm going to share. It's called Profit First, right? How often when you're an entrepreneur, you put all the money back into the business and you don't pay yourself. And so when my business coach mentioned this, I was like, I bought it and I got it on Audible. So I'm listening to it already, and they're already dropping. The content is already resonating with me because I don't pay myself. I put the money that I make from my revenue in the business, I've been putting it back into my business. If I didn't have a business coach that cared enough about us, the group that she's coaching, then I wouldn't have that information. And she's very passionate about it, very transparent. And so that is the mindset that I have too, is that I don't want to work for people I want to work for people that want results. I don't want you to pay me because, unless you want results. I want you to be able to do the work. Just like the Army has certain quality of people, the Navy has certain quality of people, Air Force, Coast Guard, right? I want women that are ready to do the work. I'm onboarding 3 champions, and I said to them, I'm going to show up and I'm going to need you to show up. If you're not willing to show up and do the work, there's no need for you to be in the program. All too often, and this is something that I speak to myself too, is I didn't do the work sometimes. So you have to chisel out, you have to prioritize your time, look at your schedule, find out when you're going to work on doing the work.
Right.
Because you can write down, there's an exercise, writing down what you do all day, every minute, and then look at it. And then be like, ooh, and look at the times that you have where you're just not doing anything that can help you with creating that legacy for your kids, for making sure that you don't have to go back to someone telling you what to do. Going back into an environment where it's easy to get conveniently complacent, but yet you're undervalued, you're overworked, you're underpaid.
Right.
I find so much joy in doing what I do. It's just, it's not work, it's creating. I create. So
no, that's great. And then you are helping other people create. So it's always like a new adventure. You're molding their transition within 12 weeks, you said, right? 12 weeks process?
If they do, yes, they'll have 12 weeks.
No, that's great. Well, thank you so much. I'm not going to take all of your time, Charmin. Thank you. You're being very generous and you dropping some gems. So you guys heard it. So Charmin, if people want to get a hold of you, like if they want to, get in touch with you, where would they be able to find you?
Well, you can find me on all the socials. Facebook, you can find me under Charmin N Jacobs, as well as on LinkedIn, Instagram. TikTok is Success After Discharge, but you can go over to LinkedIn And on LinkedIn, I have a link there, and you can, for I believe it's a 30-minute free session, coaching session. And yeah, we can have a conversation.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for coming. You guys heard it here. Charmin Jacobs, she's an author, she's a veteran, and she helps veteran women transition after discharge successfully. So guys, see you later. Thank you for tuning in, and see you next week. Bye-bye. Real quick, calling all Doral professionals, entrepreneurs, and community influencers. Are you ready to showcase your business, share your knowledge and experience with our engaged audience? Building Connections Doral Talks invites you to become a guest speaker on our podcast. Share your unique perspectives and inspiring stories with our listeners. We believe in the power of your voice in shaping the conversations right here in Doral. Click the link below to submit your information and be part of our next episode. Join us in building connections, sharing knowledge, and growing together. Don't miss this opportunity to be a featured guest on Building Connections Doral Talks. Tune in, connect, share, and grow together with Building Connections Doral Talks, reshaping the way we engage with the diverse voices of Doral, one guest at a time. Doral Talks, your voice, our community. Click the link now on the show notes, the screen, or in the comments below, or just scan the QR code to submit your information as a guest. I hope to see you soon. See you in the next podcast. Bye.